So I got this question that says, how do I import inventory into QuickBooks Enterprise? Really quick, simple question, bit of a nuanced answer. So I'm going to show you in this video, how do we import from Excel into QuickBooks Desktop? Any desktop version, QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Premier, QuickBooks Accountant, QuickBooks Enterprise. Any of the desktop versions are going to have this feature built in, so I'm going to show you how to do that. If you're working with QuickBooks Online, this video is not for you. You have to search for a different video that talks about importing items into QuickBooks Online. So let's jump right in. First of all, let's go ahead and open up the Excel spreadsheet that we're going to import. This spreadsheet came straight from the vendor, whoever we're going to buy these parts from, and it has a couple of columns. It's got a part number, that's going to be our item name. It has maker, which I'm not sure what it's going to be. I'm going to use preferred vendor for that one. Then we have description, which will be the description, both sales and purchase description. Then we have quantity on hand. Maybe this is how much we physically have in the warehouse. So we're going to go ahead and import inventory items with beginning balances. You don't have to do beginning balances. You can just import the items if you want to, but I'm going to show you the example with the beginning balances. Here's our cost, is how much it cost us to buy that inventory, and the MSRP from the vendor, what our vendor expects to sell it from. Now, this spreadsheet is not ready. We're going to have to add some additional information to it, but we're going to kind of do it as we go. So within this context, this is what we want to import into QuickBooks Desktop. Let me go ahead and open up QuickBooks Desktop. I'm going to go into the list menu and item list, just so you can see that we have absolutely no items in here. If I were to right click anywhere here and click on new, or click on the item tab on the bottom here and then click on new, we get to the new item screen. And then under inventory part, what we're going to do is we're going to import, let's see how many lines are in here. I think it was like 700 and something. Look, 701 lines, 700 lines we're importing into QuickBooks from Excel. So 700 times after we do this, QuickBooks is going to bring the data from Excel and fill it into this item card and create all 700 items. Some of the required fields is going to be item name. That's an absolute required field. We're going to have our cost. We have to put that in there in order to bring in the value of the beginning balances. The sales price, we don't have to bring it in there, but we are going to do it anyway. The cost of goods sold account, that's a required field. So we have to put cost of goods sold in there. The income account, that's a required field. Let's say we want to send it into sales. And the asset account, inventory asset, that's also a required field. Preferred vendor is not required. Purchase description, sales description, not required. Manufacturer's part number, not required. Unit of measure, we're going to use our unit of measure set called each. So we're going to import everything as each. So you're going to see kind of how that goes when I bring that information in. Now, this total quantity on hand that's currently there, that's going to be pre-filled with the beginning balances, and the total value is also going to be pre-filled with the total balances. Once we import it, these fields are going to be grayed out. They're going to be taken out, because when you import inventory, you can no longer bring inventory balances. You can only do it that one first time that you're importing the item. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to hit cancel. So the tool I'm going to use is going to be under the list menu, and then it's called AddEdit Multiple List Entries. So this is an old version of QuickBooks Desktop. So I'm going to click on AddEdit Multiple List Entries, and it's going to open this screen that's going to allow me here where it says list to choose multiple things under list: customers, vendors, service items, inventory parts, non-inventory parts, inventory assemblies. And if you're working with QuickBooks Enterprise 2020 Platinum Edition, you can also import vendor items, a topic for a different video altogether. So we're going to click on the list menu. We're going to click inventory parts, because that's where we're going to import. Now, once I click on inventory parts under view, I got a couple of options here. I got all inventory items, and there's nothing there now, so that's going to be blank. Active items, inactive items, unsaved items. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it in all inventory items. That's good enough. Now, what I want to do is I want to configure this spreadsheet grid per se to look identical exactly as my spreadsheet. So in my spreadsheet, I have, let's go up here, I have part number, maker, which will do preferred vendor, description, quantity on hand, cost, and MSRP. Now I want to bring both vendor description and sales description is going to be the exact same thing. So I'm actually going to insert a new column here in Excel, and then I'm going to copy all of my description and paste it right into an empty column. Basically, all I'm doing is I'm having two descriptions, purchase description and sales description. So now I got part number, preferred vendor, sales description, purchase description, quantity on hand, cost, and MSRP, which, let's say, for example, just for the sake of it, I don't want to use MSRP. I want to create my own sales price, which is going to be, let's say, double the cost. So I can just double click or just get rid of my MSRP completely. And then based on cost, I'm going to hit equals, select this, and I'm going to multiply times 2, press enter, and let's say that's going to be the sales price we're going to use. I'll double click on that so all my sales prices get entered, and then here I'll just put price. It doesn't matter what I put up there, but I'm just illustrating to you that most of these price lists that you're going to get from vendors, you're going to use some of the data and not use some of the other data, and you're going to have to construct your own data before you import it. So let's go into QuickBooks and get this grid looking the exact same way. So in here, notice that I have item name, sub item of, cost. It's already not looking exactly as my spreadsheet. So let me go ahead and minimize the left navigation bar just so I can get rid of some dead space, have a little bit more real estate here. Then I'm going to go up to the top right. I'm going to click on customize columns. In here, I'm going to make the columns look exactly like my spreadsheet. So what I'll do is I'll remove everything I can. Let me remove everything I can just to take away some distractions. And now I'm to the core columns that I can't remove. Item, cost of goods sold account, income account, and asset account. Let's start with that, see what happens. I'm going to click OK. And there's my 4 columns. Item name, cost of goods sold account, income account, asset account. Let's go back to the spreadsheet and see what we need to do. So we do item name, then vendor name, description. Okay, let's start with that. So let's go back to customize columns. And then the next one's going to be vendor name. So there it is, preferred vendor. I'm going to bring that to the right by clicking on add. Then I'm going to take that field, I'm going to move it up to put it next to item name. Then the next one's going to be purchase description. There it is. I'm going to click on add, bring it to the right to the chosen column, move up and put it as my 3rd column right under preferred vendor. Let's click on now sales description. I'm going to click on add and then bring that up and put it next to purchase description. Let's see what we got next. Click to the right. Okay, so we have on hand, cost, and price. So let's go back into QuickBooks and let's bring quantity on hand. There it is. Click on add, move up and put that next to sales description. And the next one is cost. There it is. I'm going to click on add, move that up and put that next to quantity on hand. Then I'm going to look for sales price, click on add, move that up and put that next to cost. So now what we have left is cost account, income account, and asset account. And just for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to make income account first. So I'm going to move that up. That way they're in order, income, cost, asset. There we go. So I'm going to click OK. Now I have a lot more columns in here. This looks kind of like a spreadsheet. And the idea is that now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste from Excel into here. Let's see what happens. Let's go into Excel. Let's select the very first part number there. That's going to be my item name. And then scroll to the right. I'm going to hold the shift key, click on price, which is the last column I'm going to import. And I'm going to scroll all the way down and holding the shift key, I'll click on the very last piece of information here. So now I have everything selected. All I have to do is right click and click copy. This is in Excel. I'm going to click copy. Then I'm going to go into QuickBooks. I'm going to put the cursor right there under the first empty box under item name. If everything is there the way it's supposed to be, I should simply just right click and click paste. Perfect. So a couple of issues, right? Whatever shows on red means it's an issue. In this case, Oracle, the vendor, is not created. What's nice about this screen is that this screen will prompt me to create the vendor. Now I'm going to hit cancel and I'm actually going to hit close for a second and hit cancel. Let's close that. Okay. And we're going to fix a couple of things in here. So let's go ahead and close this. Go back to list, add edit multiple list entries. Let's go into list vendors. I have no vendors on this QuickBooks file. Let me go to Vendor Center. It's a totally blank QuickBooks file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the vendors first. Let me go into Excel over here. I'm going to select my entire maker column, copy that. I'm going to go into a new tab. So this is more Excel stuff than QuickBooks stuff. Right click and paste. And then I'm going to click on the entire column here, go into the data menu, and then click on remove duplicates, right? So because all I'm trying to do is get all of my vendor names. There it is. So here's my vendor names: Oracle, JD Edwards, Cybo, The Mantra, and PeopleSoft. So in my original spreadsheet, these are all the total different vendors in the spreadsheet that I want to bring in. If they're not in QuickBooks, I need to create them first. I'm going to copy these and then go into QuickBooks and then just paste this under vendor name. I don't have addresses or contact information or anything like that. So I'm actually importing my vendor list first. I'm going to click on Save Changes. There it is. I got my 5 vendors into QuickBooks. Beautiful. So if I click on the vendors menu and then click on Vendor Center, I should now see my 5 vendors. So I'm no longer going to have an error in the screen when I bring the vendors in. Let's go back into List, Inventory Parts, and try the copy and paste again. So I select this one and then go down to the very last data field, hold the shift key, click. Okay, that way all of my data is selected. Control C or right click, copy, go back into QuickBooks, go to the topmost left empty box, right click, paste, and we'll give it about a couple of seconds for it to finish populating. And now see, no longer I see any red on the preferred vendor. If I scroll up and down, none of my vendors have reds. Let's see my next red, my cost. It's containing a $sign. So when you actually copy and paste from Excel into QuickBooks, can't have $signs. So that caused that problem. It's okay. I actually don't need to delete anything. I'm going to be able to copy and paste straight into what I've entered already. So let me go back into Excel here. Let's select our 2 pieces of information here. Let me change the formatting and put here general. So that takes away all my $signs. What I'm also going to do is actually not do general. I'm going to do number because I wanted to have numbers and I wanted to have the decimals. Now we also need to make sure that these decimals are rounded. QuickBooks gets a little bit iffy when you try to bring more than 2 decimals. So that should be okay from that perspective. So now let's go ahead and select the entire data field one more time. See if we're going to get the same error. Select everything here, copy, go back into QuickBooks, go to the top left item. This hasn't been saved yet, so it will just override, and then right click and paste. And now you give it a few seconds and it should re-override. And now notice that there are no reds here. So that's great. Now, most people wish that at this point they can click save and it will work, but it won't because there's additional required fields. So if I try to click on save changes, nothing would happen and I'll get an error saying, hey, this didn't work. We have missing fields. So what fields are we missing? Well, we're missing our income account in this case, and we're also missing a couple of things because we're bringing beginning balances. So let's start by putting income account here. I'll select sales, which is an income account I want to map to that item. Then one really cool thing is I can right click and click copy down, and all that information will populate in all 700 items. Now, a really important note, if I wanted to group these items when I sell them by, let's say, preferred vendor, then I probably would create a different income account called Sales Oracle, right? Or Oracle Sales or whatever, and then do it differently as we get to other makers of the software. So if I wanted to differentiate these by type of product, by logical grouping of the item, I probably want to add a different income account, a different COGS account, a different inventory asset account, so I can group them in a logical way. Let's do that because I think that's a really valuable lesson. So I'm going to click on close here and not save this. Go back into Excel. I'm going to go all the way up, and then what I'll do is I'm going to select all the data here, and then I'm going to add some filters. So I'm going to click on data and then filters. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to group these by, or sort them by the makers. I'm going to click here where it says sort A through Z. There it is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a new column here. I'm going to create, let's call this one income account. Income account. And this is going to be sales, colon, the mantra. Okay, so I'm creating an income account called sales the mantra. I'm going to scroll that down and then bring it all the way down to the last entry. On the second one, I'm going to do sales, column, JD Edwards, and then I'm going to click and drag that down all the way to my last JD Edwards item. Come up here, perfect. Let's do the same thing, sales, colon, Oracle. If you're wondering what the colon is for, those are sub accounts. So I'm creating a main account called sales and a sub account called Oracle. So I'm going to click that, drag that down. Let's see when we have the next type of vendor down here somewhere. Let's keep going down. And there's my next one. So we'll do sales, colon, Cybel. And then we'll double click on that. Kind of like copy down in QuickBooks. And that's it. So I have my income account set up. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my COGS account and my inventory asset account. So I'm going to go ahead and insert 2 more columns in here. Let me click on insert, and I'm going to call this one COGS, and then this one inventory asset. So that's up to you if you want to create those things in your spreadsheet first. That's useful for what I'm trying to achieve. So let's call this one COGS, colon, the mantra. Click and drag that down. And we can do this with a formula. We can actually do equals, quote, COGS, colon, end quote, and then we'll put an ampersand, and then we'll put the name of the vendor, press enter, and that's going to pre-fill it for me. Now I can just double click on that pull handle there, and then everything will be done for me. So everything will be formula based. And then at this point, I can click on the entire column, copy, and then paste values. I try to do that to get rid of the formulas. Next one's going to be inventory, colon, and then the name. So we're going to call this one inventory, colon, and the name, but let's do this as a formula. So equals, quote, inventory, colon, quote. So that's how I'm doing it, right? With the quotes, add the ampersand, and then I'll add the name of the maker, press enter, beautiful, click, double click, and bring that down. I'm going to select the whole column, copy, and then paste values. Now, really important, let me go back into QuickBooks here, and let me go into my chart of accounts to make sure I have all these accounts. So I have sales, I don't have the sub accounts. I'm actually going to create them on the fly. This one called cost of goods sold, I'm going to edit it and change it to COGS, just so it's got the same naming that I used on my spreadsheet. Save and close. And then my inventory asset, where is it? There it is. I'm going to change that to edit that, change that to inventory again, because I want to match the exact same naming system I used in my spreadsheet. Now, when I create them, it'll prompt me to create the sub accounts, but I do that all on the fly as I do the import. That's good, right? So let's go back into Excel, select my first part number here, come all the way down to the very last one, select it, copy it, go back to QuickBooks, list, add, edit multiple list entries, list, go to inventory parts, and I have to insert the income, cost account, and asset account in between my vendor and my purchase description. So I'm going to go to customize columns right there on the top right, go to income account, move that up and put that right after vendor name. COGS account, same thing, move that up and put that right after income account. Asset account, move that up and put that right after COGS account. Click OK. Beautiful. Now I'm going to click on the empty box on the top right, right click, paste, and cross my fingers, see what's going to happen. Okay, I am getting some errors here because these accounts are not in the chart of accounts. So it's only 5, so I'm going to create them on the fly. So I'm going to click on setup, save and close. Go to the next one, setup, save and close. I'm just clicking on the red part. Setup, save and close. Beautiful. I'm going to scroll down a little bit until I see my next red. There it is. One more time. Click on it, setup, save and close. QuickBooks is on the fly creating all these accounts for me. Probably would have been a good idea to create them in the chart of accounts first. I think it would have been a bit easier to do that. but we can do it right here on the fly. Okay, so let's keep clicking on these red ones and create them on the fly here. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep clicking on these so they can get created. Any more reds? Let's see. There's a couple of reds here. Click on them, setup. So yeah, generally I actually create them in the chart of accounts, but sometimes when I get lazy and there's not that many of them, I just click on the red until all the reds go away. Let me just make sure there's no more reds. There's a couple here. Okay, there's one. Setup, save and close, setup, save and close. QuickBooks is smart. It knows to create them in the right category because it's doing all sub accounts. Well, I don't see any more reds. Oh, there it is. There's another red here somewhere. Let's just click on the down arrow until one red pops up. I think we're good. We might be good completely at this point. Yep. There's a couple reds that snuck in there. No, these are good. Okay, so now that I got all the accounts created, I'm actually going to click on the top left, all the way in the top left. I'm going to right click and paste again. It's actually going to overwrite all the information, and then hopefully there's no more reds. Some reds are showing up in there, but I think we're going to be okay. Let's just go ahead and we're going to give it a shot because they're showing up red, but I think I already created those accounts. So I think we're good. We'll see what happens. All right, let's go to the right a little bit. There's my descriptions, right? So I have my sales description and my purchase description, which are technically the same thing. Quantity on hand, cost, and sales price. Now, one really important thing when we're dealing with quantity on hand, there's another column that you want to bring in. I'm going to go to customize columns, click on that, and then bring in as of date. Really, really important to do that. Bring as of date. Click on add all the way to the right. That's okay. Click OK. Then all the way to the right, as of date will be the date, the computer date, right? Today's date. So I want to choose as of when I want to import all these items into QuickBooks. So let's say I want to import them as of 12/31/2018. So I'm going to type on the first one all the way in the top, 12/31/2018, and then there it is. And then I'm going to right click on it and then click on copy down. And what that's going to do is similar to Excel. It's actually going to bring in the same exact date to all of them. And because I'm bringing beginning balances, I have to specifically tell QuickBooks which date I'm going to do that for. So at this point, I think we're going to cross our fingers and see if this works. I'm going to go ahead and click on Save Changes. And let's see what happens. There it is. Percentage bars are good, right? So if there's an error somewhere in the middle, the arrow will pop up. So we'll give it a chance. And there you go. And if any of them have any errors, it will tell you. I went ahead and added some of them and I left the one with errors out. So let's click on that and let's see which ones have errors here. Let's just go through them. So I'm just clicking on them to make sure that there's no issues with the accounts. I'm just going to scroll all the way down until all those reds turn black. Okay, so the same thing over here. Just make sure all the reds turn black. Sometimes QuickBooks needs to kind of like refresh it and realize that these accounts are in the chart of accounts. Let's try one more time. Click Save and Close, or click on Save Changes actually. And let's see if the rest import. Perfect. So now everything imported. If I go to inventory parts here and then view and I click on all inventory items, I'm actually going to be able to scroll down and see all of the items in there. If I go into my list and go into my item list, I now should see all the items in my item list. Okay, there it is. Let's scroll up and down. Take a look at that. That's a beauty right there. I'm going to hit Control-1 on the keyboard real quick, just so we can see here where it says list information, how many total items we have. Look at that. Total items, 700. We went from 0 to 700, all within a few minutes, basically. So I'm going to click OK. And there you go. Beautiful thing. I'm going to hit Escape and Escape. And then I'm going to go into the balance sheet to show you what happened to the balance sheet. So I'm going to go to Reports. Then I'm going to go to Company Financial, Balance Sheet Standard. Then once we click on that, notice that I have my inventory asset account all broken down by category. I can click on the little triangle, collapse that, and I have my $4.8 million in inventory. Let's double check with our spreadsheet. Let's come here with our spreadsheet And let's come up here to our values here. So we have on hand and cost. So I'm going to come here to the right and do equals, take our on hand times our cost, press enter, and then I'm going to click and drag that all the way down, and then all the way down in the bottom, let's run a subtotal and see what happens. So I'll do equals sum, bring all this all the way to the top, and let's just make sure that this formula is correct. There it is. And this total value that we're dealing with here is 4.811836.37. Let's go into QuickBooks and look, the exact same dollar amount. So we're expecting this, exactly what we're expecting. Now, without getting really wonky and nerdy about the mechanics of accounting, the balance to the inventory asset went into opening balance equity. Now, generally speaking, every circumstance matters when you import beginning balances, but for this specific case, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, which is move that from opening balance equity to retained earnings. Now, this part gets really, really tricky. I'm not advocating that you should always move it to retained earnings. You should consult an accountant, a trained professional, to make sure that you're not screwing up your taxes and your reporting when you're doing this. I know what I'm doing. I know opening balance equity should have no balance, and I'm moving it to retained earnings because I know exactly what I'm trying to achieve with that. Let me close that, go to reports, company financial, profit and loss standard. This is a blank file. I got absolutely no information in my profit and loss, but I'm gonna go ahead and create an invoice, and then I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna pick a couple of the items here from the invoice. I'm gonna click on the drop down code on the item code, and I'm gonna pick any of these items. So I'll just pick a couple of items here at random, just to put together an invoice. Okay, there we go. And let's do one more. Okay, so I got a couple of items here at random. I'm also gonna put a couple of quantities here at random so we get an invoice going. There we go. So there's my invoice. I'm gonna go ahead and select create a new customer here. We'll call it test customer. And I'm doing this just so we can see what this looks like in the profit and loss. Click OK and then save. Actually, let's put today's date, the day that I recorded this video, and I do save and close. Okay, so I got an invoice, and now my profit and loss actually has sales by category, which is why I like doing the subcategories. So take a look at that. If I don't want to see them, I just click on the triangle next to sales, and I only see sales. So I got sales by category, and I also got cost by category. So if I ever wanted to know what one of the categories is in terms of profit, it's a fairly simple thing for us to look at. So that's it. That's how you get inventory imported into QuickBooks Enterprise or QuickBooks Pro and QuickBooks Premier for that matter, and what it looks like after you import it. Go back into the item list again so you can see it. There's all my items. As a matter of fact, if I right click on any of these items and go to Quick Report, I can see the history. If I go to dates and click on all dates, we can see exactly what happened. We can see when it was imported, and it's 145 units. And if I click on any of them, right click and go to edit, you see how everything is set up inside this item cart, and including the on hand and the average cost based on where they were imported. So yes, you can use minimum and maximum. You can use manufacturer's part number. You can use your unit of measure set. You can use custom fields as well. Actually, all of those things are importable. I'm just going to show you that real quick because we didn't get into those details. I'm going to go back to add, edit, multiple list entries. Then I want to go back into list and click on inventory parts. And then I'm going to go into customize columns to the right, and then see all the items to the left are things that can be imported. So I can import whether it's active or inactive. I can import, in this case, in unit of measure, maximum, minimum, markup. You can also update prices with this. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go ahead and bring margin to the right, and then I'm going to click OK. Then I want to maximize this screen for a second, just so you can see what that looks like. Go all the way to the right. Notice that this margin is set at 50%. So if I change this margin to 75%, and then let me scroll up here, and then right click and copy down, you will see that now all my sales prices will be updated with the new margin. That's amazing. That particular margin markup, that's only available in Enterprise, not in Pro, not in Premier. But you can, in this same screen, you can really quickly change the margins of your product. On top of that, I can also filter. So I'm going to click Save Changes real quick. So I went across the board and changed all the margins to 75%. But I'm going to show you how we can take this to to the next step, basically. I'm going to click here where it says View. I'm going to click on Custom Filter. Then I'm going to click on Search In. Notice that I have a couple of options here in where I can put it. I'm going to click Preferred Vendor. And then I'm going to put here, let's say, Oracle. So I'm only going to look at my Oracle Preferred Vendor items. Then I'm going to click on Go. That's actually going to filter the amount of items that I see in here. And let's say that I did change all the items to 75% margin across the board, but now I want to go just to Oracle and just edit those. And let's say for Oracle items, I want 60%. So change it at the top, right click, click copy down, and then only the items that are being displayed are the ones that are going to now update the sales price. I'm going to click on Save Changes, and then I'm doing another sales price update. So I click OK, 300 items all in one shot changed. Click on the X, and that's it. So I hope you liked the video. AddEdit multiple list entries is one of my favorite features inside QuickBooks Desktop. If you try to do it yourself and you run into some situations, you can hire me or someone from my team to help you import inventory. That is our specialty. Importing inventory into QuickBooks is our thing. We do that really, really well, probably better than most people out there. So hopefully this video helps you do it. I would love for you to try doing it. Back up your file first just in case you screw something up, and maybe try it a couple times. Worst case scenario, you know who to hire. Hope you like this video. Hit like, hit subscribe, add some comments below. Was there something else you wanted to see? Did I miss something? What's the next video about inventory you would like to see? Thank you.